Hello, dear friends. We're sincerely glad to greet you again. Today, we're going to talk with the esteemed Igor Mikhailovich Danilov.
Greetings.
Igor Mikhailovich, nowadays, people don't need to be scientists to understand that there is something wrong with the climate, and that all of this indeed seriously affects and threatens people's lives. A lot of people, when they see unprecedented fires, floods, droughts, extreme heat waves, volcanic eruptions, and earthquakes across the world, they understand that there's something wrong with the planet. And they wonder what is actually going on and why, for example, are fires breaking out all over the world at the same time. Something must be wrong here. And at this point, it would seem that people can get to the bottom of the matter in search for the truth. However, unfortunately, we face the fact that, as a rule, they stop at the following thought, which is being broadcast all over the world nowadays, that everything that is happening to the climate is man-made, that it has been very accurately predicted and planned by someone. By whom? Most likely by globalists, who thus want to exterminate us all or divert our attention from very important things, such as, for example, the invasion of our planet by aliens. By what means is all this accomplished? By means of climate weapons, powerful laser installations, HARP, and many other unknown words, the meaning of which isn't always clear to people. And Igor Mikhailovich, the following question suddenly arises. Why are such thoughts and such absurd versions picked up not just by people on social media, in their public forums, but also by some journalists? Why do people so easily agree to believe in these versions, in such delusions, rather than digging up the truth and broadcasting this truth?
Because lies are more comforting for us. That's the whole answer. If a person learns the truth, while the truth, if our friends are willing, we can talk about the truth, about the real situation we currently have. And when you understand this situation, it is better to believe that this is done by aliens, globalists, or some powers that be, who artificially cause fires, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions, and who strive for total power. You see, let's say it's a conspiracy theory, and it is much easier to accept. The truth is rejected by consciousness, also because it creates certain obligations. I mean, when a person understands what is really happening to the climate, that means he has to take some action to save himself somehow. Why? Because there is an understanding of a very short period of time that we have ahead of us, an understanding that everything is escalating and escalating very quickly, and that the world is indeed changing. It's not changing, it has already changed, and it has changed drastically. Therefore, lies are much more comforting. Why? Because if the people who are doing this, or aliens, or whoever else, demons, a genie flew out of a bottle and decided to seize the world, it means that someday someone will reach their goal. And when they reach their goal, everything will stabilize. To an ordinary person, it seems, the main thing is that my plans don't change. A person has planned his life. He knows that he wants something. He has some plans for his children, for his family, maybe for his personal achievements, or perhaps at least to build a house. Well, such simple elementary things, just to retire, take a fishing rod and go fishing. Whereas here, it is all falling apart. It turns out tomorrow is questionable, and things are only getting worse. Nobody wants it to get worse, but no one wants to do anything about it. Why? Because we're used to shifting responsibility onto someone else. We've been trained to live that way. Our job is to go and vote, appoint a person to be in charge, dump all the problems on him, and then it will be his problem. But again, we dump all our problems on a person who is just like us. His capabilities are as limited as ours, despite the fact that he may have an army and whatnot at his command. In reality, we can see that when it comes to climate, no one can do anything. In fact, we have no tool, no weapon to confront today's situation with climate change. After all, this is true. Again, look, there are fires, floods, and earthquakes going on. People are expecting immediate help, but we are not prepared for that. We didn't prepare at all.
Helplessness.
For 40 years, we have been preparing for CO2 to stabilize and for everything to be fine. Huge, tremendous funds were spent on that. Yet the situation has only progressed. But it is one thing when it was progressing slowly. It was somehow unnoticeable. Something happened somewhere and stopped at that. But what is happening now is starting to happen quite like an avalanche. If we look, there is an interesting trend today. After we had the autumn form, there was a series of volcanic eruptions, then a series of earthquakes with a sad, extremely sad outcome. What happened in Turkey? And afterwards, then there were floods, fires, and hailstorms. And it is the winds started. It was all quite demonstrative, too. And these events occur somehow in series, intermixing a little bit. But mostly, it's a series of events. For example, a series of fires that took place recently and are still going on, unfortunately. And we see that these events are kind of like samples. You know, when you enter a store and they offer you to try a perfume, and they give you samples so that you can choose your preferred fragrance and possibly buy it. It's the same in this case. It feels like they give us some samples to see our reaction. It's true, it looks a lot like a man-made phenomenon. A person, whether he wants to or not, subconsciously analyzes the situation anyway. Information comes, and even if a person is not interested, he still pays attention to it. Why? Everything is changing. Any living organism already understands that changes are taking place. And if this organism is also endowed with intelligence, then, whether it wants to or not, it begins to evaluate. And this is where it is much more convenient and advantageous to think that it is all man-made, no matter who does it, but there is a simple objective, a simple goal. Obviously, power or something else connected with, what else can it be in our society? Power and money, even though essentially they're the same thing. And that's it, you see? Someone has achieved their goals. As for an ordinary person, if he hasn't been affected by some virus or heavily programmed, he doesn't really care who rules, aliens or earthlings. All he cares about is that nothing changes in his world. You know, such a micro-society, which is created for everyone. So, we have work, home, what else do we need? And this well-being, or the illusion of our existence, dominates us. We don't want to part with this picture, and we certainly don't want to part with the image that predominates in us regarding our future. That's the reason for the denial. Everything is simple in this case. It is possible to understand such people. Therefore, when the truth is being voiced, the truth, is not tasty, it's pungent. And people don't really want to accept it. Because of that, people pick up all sorts of conspiracy ideas from bloggers, from journalists, that somebody is doing it on purpose. As you say, laser weapons, which are setting something on fire from outer space, some globalists are rushing to power and causing floods. Yes, that's acceptable for our consciousness. Why? Because it gives us hope for the future. But the time to rid ourselves of illusions has long passed. If we had seen the problem in time, we would not be standing on the edge of this abyss where the climate Cerberus is now pushing us to. Yes, people can be understood. Also, I'll put it this way. There's another pandemic that has been going on for a long time, and this pandemic is probably the most terrible. It is idiocy. It is the most global sect whose representatives are practically everywhere and in all organizations. I mean the idiots. Pardon the comparison, but there's no other way to put it. When obvious facts occur, when we see what is happening now, it doesn't actually fit into any of the models that they have tried to impose on us to explain the changes that have taken place. Everything is very simple now. What is happening now, it's already clear, even to a fool, that it is a cycle, that there is an external cosmic influence. Neighboring planets are involved. Well, how could our rising CO2 affect the nearby planets in our solar system? In no way. How could we affect the instability of the core and the deep focus earthquakes taking place due to cavitation processes? Few people realize what's really going on. Well, this is true. No way we could affect that. As for what is happening now with the magma, well, that's a real problem. The fact that the ocean is dying, we've already said that it should have already been in resuscitation a long time ago. I mean, we should have already been reviving it by now. But, people don't care. There are very important processes right now in geopolitics, in economics. Well, and just in our personal lives, there are a lot of different events going on. Everybody has their own. But nevertheless, we have our plans. We want them to be implemented. And we do not care about small things like climate change. So what if it happens someday? We still have 5 to 7 years ahead of us.
And is there a trend towards improvement, Igor Mikhailovich?
There is no trend towards improvement. To be honest, I'm upset. I don't want to upset our friends either. But let's take a sensible and honest look. What is going on now? Look, I can only speak for our activity and research. Thanks to our friends, those very researchers and scientists who have been with us for many years and decades, with whom we have tried to study side by side and have been involved in various research in this field, in the study of the climate, the methods, and possibilities of counteracting the impending catastrophe, or rather, the one that has already arrived. There is no other way to put it. And for the sake of understanding, I'll put it simply. Let us face the truth honestly, friends. Just honestly. What is happening in our world today? Because of the plain and simple human factor. A huge blank spot has appeared. And there are many scientists, quite a few, with whom our contact has been interrupted. This is a problem for them too, because they are intelligent people, and they understand very well that their contribution was very important. In addition, contact with many volunteers who are not involved in the scientific part, but were involved in the process of observation and research of historical facts, has been interrupted. But a lot of things were done, including the popularization of common sense in society. There is no other way to put it. They cannot contribute to that anymore. Why? Because it has been legally banned on the territory of Russia, and it may even expand a little bit further. We expect this because it is logical. But this is a huge blank spot where we can no longer do anything. No research. Even contacting these people would imply immediate imprisonment for them. Why? Because they are in contact with representatives of an organization undesirable in their country. You see, this is a serious matter. It means that our collaboration is prohibited. Hence, we cannot get objective data, except what is officially published somewhere. And thanks to our friends from other countries, we can get this information. But it is actually unreliable. To be honest, it comes with a delay, and it doesn't always correspond to reality. Whereas now, some places that have been carefully observed by our friends in that territory require observation. Few people know that in the existing Siberian plume, new foci are actually emerging. It's true, including in the Altai territory. This is not so good. We've already discussed with you in the previous video that magmatic rivers change their course, meaning they really create new pathways already to the crust. But this is a natural process, friends. An enormous amount of energy is released underground. Of course, the magma becomes hotter, and more liquid, and it already starts eroding the rocks underneath our plates. It's normal. It's a natural process. The ground is heating up, and in some places, the magma is already beginning to rise to higher layers. That's natural. Many things are changing, and they are changing very quickly and catastrophically. And imagine, not only did we have North Korea unobserved, but now a huge country becomes a blank spot for us. It's just that our scientists and friends cannot manage everything. You know, some people will say, why don't they leave their country, or something else? Many people cannot leave it, friends. They just cannot. But again, if they leave that territory, they won't take it with them. It will still remain. Plus, people have spent their lives on this work. They are in their place. It's clear that they will continue to observe. But what is the use of their observations if we are not together? Some projects that were quite experimental and progressive have been stopped. I will even say, and some people know, that the small equipment which was there has been dismantled, and it has already left that territory. Why? Because if it's not allowed, then it's not allowed. Thus, we cannot do many things. But that's not the scariest thing yet. The scary thing is that with every manifestation of the climate Cerberus, such as fires, floods, and earthquakes, scientific centers, observatories, and laboratories are being destroyed. Many scientists remain out of work. Why? Again, imagine, let's suppose a person worked in a laboratory on observing the ocean. This center was caught in the hotbed of fire, and it ceased to exist. People were left without work. Where will they go? After all, there are very few of such centers in the world. Wow, that's what they have been doing all their lives. They have a tremendous understanding of the processes taking place in the ocean, but they have neither equipment nor salaries anymore, nothing. Who needs them? And they lost their jobs. Now, these scientists will have to go, I don't know, to wash dishes, drive taxis, or wash cars. Where else? Where else will they go if they've been doing science throughout their lives? They understand the processes taking place in the ocean. Where can they apply their knowledge? Nowhere. They are no longer in demand. Therefore, we lose not only research centers, but we also lose researchers in a global sense. And the more often and widely such phenomena, the catastrophic phenomena of climate change, occur, the more we will lose our real opportunities as humanity. That's the truth of life. Even if we now look at ALLATRA, at our Association of Scientists, there are problems here too. Why? Opportunities are sharply decreasing at a time when they need to be increased. But how do we do that? This is the truth of life. And since the situation is such, we have nothing to counteract the climate with. We don't have such a capability. People don't hear us. Yes, they don't hear. They don't want to. They don't want to because those whom we endowed with responsibility are busy with very important matters. You and I already discussed this. They might not understand and know the entire seriousness of what is happening with the climate. Why? There's a mainstream agenda and they adhere to it. Why? Because there's no solution. As a matter of fact, many people, including scientists and rulers, understand that the situation is disastrous. They understand that there is a progression. They do see what is happening in their countries. It is all becoming more expensive and scarier. And it certainly burdens the budget. But none of their entourage gives anything even close to a real solution. Why? Because it doesn't exist. Let me outline just a part of the problem as an example. The ocean. It is extremely important. It is really very important. It's our immunity. It is our air conditioner. It is what we have destroyed with our own hands. And just imagine, our ocean is overheating. It is really dying. It is being warmed, not only from above, but most terribly from below. and this heating is getting more and more intensive. In other words, the ocean starts heating up faster and faster. It no longer performs its function at all, the one it is supposed to perform. For understanding, I would compare this. Let's imagine there is an ordinary house stove in a kitchen and a saucepan with milk in it. We turn on the stove, supply the energy. The energy is converted into heat, which heats the milk in the saucepan, and the milk starts boiling. We cannot remove the saucepan. Hence, in order for the milk to stop boiling, there are only two solutions. We should either turn off the energy to stop generating heat, or wait until the milk boils away. There is no third solution. The situation with the ocean is absolutely identical. Enormous heat is coming from the Earth's bowels, not from the sun, not because of CO2 or something else, but it is exactly the energy coming from inside the Earth that is killing our ocean, because we have created such conditions. We have polluted it. The ocean can no longer restore itself in this case. It really needs resuscitation. While we aren't doing anything, we are waiting until it either boils away or, evaporates. Isn't this what we have? While in reality, could we do anything about the ocean? Of course we could. We could clean it of this microplastic and nanoplastic. That's not a problem. Indeed. However, this cannot be solved by any one country on its own. Perhaps, if we applied all our efforts, we would probably be able to reach someone in some country, some president. But what would he solve? A simple question. Nothing. Because this needs to be solved by the whole world. Why? That's elementary. I'll come back to it again. We already discussed it. If we stop taking water for our personal use, and for any use in general as humanity, from the Earth's bowels and from rivers, and start using condensed moisture from the atmosphere, imagine, there are more than 8 billion of us. We use a whole lot of water, not just for our lives, to wash ourselves and to drink tea, but also for watering plants, washing cars, and for many other purposes. We indeed consume very large amounts of water, especially in production, don't we? We really do. And now imagine that those billions of tons of water, which we consume every day, we would take them from the air, meaning from the atmosphere. As a matter of fact, surface waters of the oceans and seas now produce a lot of vapor. That is, moisture rises in huge amounts, and those millions of tons which get into the atmosphere begin to fall out in huge quantities. As a rule, in densely populated regions. Why? There is an explanation for that. Again, we have wrapped the whole world in electrical wires. We have numerous sources of radio waves, and it all certainly interacts. Therefore, more moisture falls in certain places. Unfortunately, where people live, this will keep happening and it will increase. We can no longer get away from that. As of today, it is often shown on social media. People take pictures or record videos and show what kind of fog there is over the oceans and seas while the skies are clear, how much surface water overheats, and how much evaporation occurs. But imagine if we would start taking this water from the atmosphere all over the world. We would, first of all, improve the water exchange system. Secondly, precipitation, rains, would be adjusted and thus return into balance. The excess of those vapors would be used for our needs. Moreover, the water we use would flow into the ground. And returning to rivers and those very oceans, it would be purified by 90% or more. In other words, over 90% of water would be purified since it passes through the soil. through sands and other substances. That is, again, passing through those very rivers, through reeds and swamps, water would be cleansed, and the ocean would gradually begin to revive. This is a simple action. It is the most accessible. It seems, why not do that? And now, scale it all to the entire world. That's the answer. How many such installations are needed? How much energy is needed for them? Are we going to attach solar panels or install wind turbines? Or what? No. We already need FFGs, don't we? This is right and reasonable, but that's a direct competition for hydrocarbons. And do you know that today, it's no secret that there were previous civilizations. There is too much evidence that there were even technogenic civilizations which exceeded us in their development. These are facts that cannot be disregarded. Thus, we are not the first human community that exists on this planet, but we are the first who started using hydrocarbons as an energy source, and we are the first ones who started using hydrocarbons to make plastic. This is insane. This is really insane. Well, there are numerous justifications for using plastic, but I'll put it simply. Those who were more or less interested in history and the consumption of hydrocarbons by us as a community have noticed that science was developing, and it was developing correctly. We even came close to the concept of free energy. In fact, that very Tesla and other people before and after him proved that it was possible to use hydrogen and many other sources. But humanity started using hydrocarbons. Why? It's very profitable, they are easy to control, and they can be sold for money. That's the whole answer. We again come to money. We again come to power. We come to control and many other things, right? That's how it happens. Again, that very electricity, who needs it to be freely available? Electricity is supposed to come along wires through a meter so that payment can be charged for the amount that we use in a household or in production. You see? In other words, it's again money, 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 and this money is killing us. If we take an honest look, isn't it because of money that we don't hear reality? It's because of money. Isn't it because of money that we don't do anything? Because of the money. What is profitable, what is paid for, and what is acceptable is advertised. As for the truth, it's the truth. It is just there, and no one pays for it. If trillions of dollars were now injected into informing about what is really happening, everyone would sell themselves and start talking about it. Once ordinary people learn about it, it means politicians would begin to support it as well. Isn't that so? It is. You see how simple everything is? And how hard it is actually to look at what is happening today, while understanding and knowing what is happening. It is amazing. Why do people fail to see? Don't they really have common sense? Let's again go back to the same graphs. After all, they clearly indicate, and even, pardon me, a stupid person can understand how much everything that is happening now is actually progressing. If we consider those very winds, they are far from being the ones that we had a couple of years ago, right? Everything is changing. Excuse me, tornadoes already appear where they have never been, and people only saw them on TV before, but now they appear next to their houses, and often even pass through people's homes, depriving them of that familiar, illusory world in which they used to live. Isn't this true? It's in the territories where tornadoes are not supposed to be at all, and it is all progressing very fast, catastrophically fast. Again, why? The energy that is coming in extremely large amounts into the bowels of our planet is converted into heat due to entropy. That's a natural process. This heat becomes excessive, and that's where everything begins. In order for us to stop or restrain this process, it's not enough for us to resuscitate the ocean. All our attempts would be in vain. Why? Because the soil is warming. The Earth is warming up under our feet. Plus, changes are taking place in the electromagnetic field. And there are a lot of other objective factors. Thus, it is good to resuscitate just the ocean, but it is only good when we can create an umbrella that will cover our planet from the external cosmic influence. Only then. While in order for us to create this umbrella, we need to do a lot more work. Yet, the conditions are only getting worse instead of improving. And that's really the problem. It is clear that those on whom it all depends do not want to understand this. We never pinned our hopes on them. And we were well aware that people are not interested in it. Even ordinary people who reject it all and prefer to believe in aliens or in the existence of some kind of conspiracy, they can be understood. But the only chance for today is to inform or to try to reach out to those who don't want to hear. I don't know. Perhaps we, the ones who understand the whole seriousness of the current situation, should think over some simpler facts or methods of explanation that would be understandable to these people so that they can understand from the obvious facts without waiting for the Cerberus to come, ruin their houses, and take their relatives and friends, or maybe even themselves. God forbid that we come to that. It is certainly better to find ways and methods of delivering this information so that, excuse me, even a fool would understand. If we manage to reach people, we might be able to change something. But we are now talking about people. We are now talking about the creative society. Why? Because in any case, it is the most acceptable solution. Why? Because all resources will be available for solving the main task. In the creative society, there will be no problems with this whatsoever. Yes, there is an alternative, and we discussed it. It is what Aegon Chalakian suggested, but still, no matter how you twist it, we will have to change a lot in the relations between countries and with regard to those very migrants. Again, concerning migrants, everyone has a stable image in their head that, due to climate change, people from third world countries, from the former colonies of such states as Great Britain or France, will move to that very France or Great Britain. My friends, who told you that? I just want to ask, don't you think that it is precisely the citizens of Great Britain, Germany, and France who will have to move to their former colonies, where there is moral decline and poverty? After all, they created it, and they will have to come there themselves, to places where there is not even water. Haven't you thought about that? I'll disclose a little secret. Yes, not so long ago, we compiled an objective map of the changes, taking into account all the input data we have, how the situation will change in various countries and regions on our planet. We are sorry, but we cannot voice it so far. Not because we're stingy or something else. No, because in our opinion, the map is not entirely accurate and might not correspond to reality. Just imagine if, what we say about climate change and what needs to be done is not heard. But what if this map suddenly becomes accepted and people start migrating while we made a mistake? And people will move to the territory where the trouble will actually happen. Why? Because we didn't take something into account. This is a very responsible and serious task, and we'll have to work on it for a long time, and to observe if the map corresponds to reality. Yes, many people will say, while you'll be observing, the world is changing. But excuse me, friends, we have been saying persistently and for a very long time that the climate is changing, and that we all have a problem. People still don't hear us. However, they do hear those journalists who say that this is done by aliens or globalists, that they are using some kind of technology to cause earthquakes, floods, and fires. After all, this is so. Who hears us? Who needs us and our knowledge? Right?
Who needs friendship between people and this unification?
Absolutely right. Again, look, you have just mentioned friendship. I want to return to the proposal by Mr. Chalakian. After all, the first condition that should be ensured is friendship and mutual understanding. Why? It means that it is necessary to create uniform laws and uniform rules of behavior for people all over the world, so that people can migrate freely to open borders, as he says. While that means reconciliation, it means that all the disagreements that exist between countries simply need to be removed to make the world free and open. Yet, a lot of rulers will not want that. Do you know why? Because some countries are hard to manage if they don't have an enemy. Well, we're used to that. We are used to being threatened by terrorists. We are threatened by bad countries, and then we rally together. We listen to our leaders. We are ready to resist. Then it is clear why many different weapons are produced. It is easier and simpler when there is an enemy. Well, in this case, the enemy has disappeared, and our armies have to be retrained. Our equipment has to be redesigned. For example, we have to remove guns and install, perhaps, water cannons to put out fires and so on, to remove rubble, that is, to save people instead of killing them. Are we ready for that as humanity? If we honestly face the truth, we are not ready for it. This world, the way we have made it, is too rigid. That's the truth, and there's no escaping it. Well, as for what is happening now, I think everyone can already see that. And the point that the trend of all these processes is aggravating, and every day at that is also a fact. What we see, even, the most recent event that happened in Mecca, after all, many Muslims became agitated, and they say, what have we done to deserve this? But as it is said in the Quran, Surah 11, Ayah 117, your Lord would not destroy any town unjustly if its people were acting righteously. And the key point here is justice. There's also another very interesting statement in the Quran, which says, after all, Allah does not do injustice to people. Whatever misfortune befalls you, people, it is because of what your own hands have done. In other words, what we have done with our hands is the cause of what is happening. If we have created or done something good, then Allah will treat us well. But if we have killed the ocean, if we've destroyed this world and disunited it, we'll receive the same from Him. Everything is fair. What we've deserved is what we get. You see how simple it is. Therefore, there are no holy places which would be truly holy, in which we haven't condemned with our own hands to perish along with us. Isn't that fair? When we were given a chance, when we were given an opportunity, but instead, we started hating each other. Instead of loving our neighbor, instead of saving this entire world, we started hating each other. We have traded our God for money. We have traded Allah for gold. We have traded honesty, decency, and humaneness for exalting ourselves before other people like us. That's the truth. And there's justice in that. Everything we've deserved is what we'll get. And no matter how you look at it, it's true. To put it simply, justice is what we've done with our own hands. And let's face the truth. What have we done with our own hands? We simply killed the ocean. We killed our immunity. We killed our lungs. And now, when the floods occur, what is happening? Just imagine how much pollution, how much of that very plastic additionally flows into the ocean. This is scary. Instead of fighting for the ocean and purifying it, we're making things even worse. And it's going to accelerate exponentially. And there's no escaping that. That's the truth of life, the one we are entering. We have entered. Sorry. I said it out of habit. You see, just recently we were talking about entering. We have already entered. The process has started before time.
You know, Ingrid Mihailovich, after today's conversation, there is a tremendous understanding of how our vices are correlated with what is happening in the world.
They are absolutely correlated.
You mentioned our selfishness, our thirst for profit, all of this. How due to all of these vices we have what we have, that we have actually made the world we live in with our own hands. And there is understanding of why that very creative society project is aimed not only at solving climate issues, but also at solving our internal problems so that we change.
At solving the main problem.
So that we don't remain the same.
If we do not change, we won't be able to save the world. In any case, whether it is the creative society proposed by us or even what Dr. Chalakian proposes, this requires changes in us anyway. But the creative society is much more effective. Why? Because it leads to the fact that there won't be either money or power. And this is, I would say, this very seed which led to the fact that we practically destroyed our own world. This bad seed will be eliminated from us, people. Other conditions for life will be created for the best qualities in us to flourish. And that's when tremendous opportunities will open up before us. What Mr. Chalakian proposes is possible. Let's say our chances of saving the world are good. This will indeed improve relationships and bring peace as one of the stages for people to realize that the creative society should actually be built. Well, this is true. And here's a simple answer to those very Muslims who say, what have we done to deserve this? After all, the Prophet himself, the best of men, showed what the world should be like today by creating the Medina Covenant. It was supposed to be a world where people are friends, brothers, near and dear to each other, where there is no enmity, where there is no confrontation, where there is one goal. And again, where humaneness prevails. But it is what it is, and we see the result. Wasn't it us who did it? Was it not Allah's will? And didn't the Prophet Muhammad tell us what the world should be like? He did. Just look how valuable it is to study religions. They are really a fount of knowledge and understanding. After all, in those very religions, in that very Quran, it is said that we receive what we create with our own hands. This is the freedom of choice. What was the will of Allah? This was also said. After all, that very creative society is actually the Medina Covenant brought by the Prophet Muhammad. This is really so. However, we didn't want it and didn't build it. We fell for temptation. That's the answer. And we failed to correct our mistakes over the vast amount of time we had. In fact, there was plenty of time for us to stop and come to our senses. But we kept on fighting. What were we fighting for? For money? For power? That's the answer. Some people will say, we were not fighting, others did it. Well, it was us who actually supported it. We participated in it, and we agreed with it. Just as many people now agree that all these cataclysms are man-made, that someone has deliberately caused them. We turned our backs on the truth. Just as we are now turning our backs on objective, real things, on what is actually happening to the climate. In fact, nowadays, even a fool, excuse me, should have realized what is really going on. But a lot of smart people are turning away, pretending they don't see it. But this is really so. We have everything we've created. We're going towards what we deserve. Yes, we have a chance. Yes, we must defend our planet, defend our lives. That's the point. Yes, we, those who understand the whole threat and gravity of the current situation, we will look for ways to inform and bring that information to people in order to try to build the creative society. Well, it is unacceptable for a certain group of people. Again, what does it mean for a certain group of people? You know, even when we talk about the creative society, there are people who do not accept it. Normal, ordinary people like us. They say, sorry, everything's too good in your project. You appear to be pure as the driven snow, which means that the globalists are behind you, or some other nonsense. You see, it's our nonsense that is killing us. Therefore, friends, we either have to get wise, or really, as an option, we should just take a fishing rod and go fishing. Why should we bother? Right?
No, the best thing is not to lose one's common sense, to keep this inner immunity and to convey the truth to people.
Because of people like Tatiana, we cannot go fishing, and we have to knock on closed doors and pierce someone's armor with our foreheads to give at least a basic understanding of what is happening and what we can actually do. As for the fact that our opportunities are diminishing, yes, friends, they are diminishing. It's sad. This is true. Well, that's no reason to give up, so to say. On the contrary, it's a reason to do our best and to strive. The more difficult the task, the more pleasant it is to solve it. Yes, things have not gone our way so far. That's true. We are losing a lot. We had little, and we're losing even the last of it. But do you know what's important? What's important is that we have an inner understanding of the truth. And there's an understanding of what we can do, how we can counter, and how we can create this umbrella. And that's really interesting. Unfortunately, regarding that very umbrella, several people were actively involved. Now, as you know, that part of our brain is no longer available. Stupid things. Just stupid things. Well, and we are incapable of solving these stupid things. You see, there's so much we cannot do. But that's not a reason to give up. Take a fishing rod, go fishing, and forget about everything. Forget about what? About our near and dear ones. Forget about the whole world. And this is where the responsibility lies. The responsibility of those who understand the truth, who, despite all the complexities and difficulties, bear this responsibility. It's hard. I agree, and I understand you very well, friends. I understand that the world is not just. This world has never been just. Yes, we can make it that way if we are heard by those who don't want to hear us, and if we are understood by those who don't want to understand us, if people simply want to live. But if they don't want to live, we won't accomplish anything. But at least our conscience will be clear. And the responsibility we have, it is high. I agree. This is unfair. I agree. It's very unfair. But that's the way the world is. And this proves, once again, that for justice to triumph in this world, it is actually necessary to build the creative society. Therefore, we're doing everything that depends on us. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, friends. Thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your humaneness. Thank you. Peace be with you and God's love.